I like to have it with a bit of broccoli, just to have a bit of textural difference on the plate. But when you think about it, you've got potato, meat, carrots, peas. That's a meal in one right there. You don't really need to add anything to it. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, Dick and Dom are in the bungalow and all that jazz. This is utter perfection. If I can manage it without making a mess of it. I've made a mess of it. That's not going to look very good in a photo, is it? Why did that flip over? Or Henderson's Wellis. Wellis? I'm Jonathan Roche. Roche. No, I'm Sean Connery. Don't you just want to stick your face in that? That looks absolutely beautiful. Proper gorgeous bit of lamb. Tong, 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 tong. Ooh, rich and voluptuous. I don't know if I'd ever call it voluptuous. I didn't mean to call it voluptuous. I think you know what I mean. Probably going to be some salt in our assorted. There's going to probably be some salt in our assorted stocks. I'll say that 5 times quickly. Hearty lammy veggies. They're not lamb. Alright, people. So, it's winter. Well, winter's coming. Actually, it's a really bad example because today is some of absolutely beautiful, gorgeous day. It's really super fucking sunny. Look how beautiful that is. Look at me window boxes. But, and ignore all the mess. On the whole, the weather's getting a bit crappier. It's a bit colder, darker of an evening, all that sort of stuff. So I thought, nice bit of comfort food. How about we make a nice shepherd's pie? But let's make it proper fancy, proper bougie. Instead of just using lamb mince, which there's nothing wrong with using, we're going to slow braise lamb shoulder. The astute amongst you might notice that there's 2 halves of a lamb shoulder here. That's all I could get. What you get for going shopping late on a Monday. After, you know, everyone else has bought everything. Oh well. Right, so we are going to, it's going to take a while, because we're going to slow braise the lamb shoulder for ages in a mise en place with some beef stock. So we're going to make a lamby beef stock or a beefy lamb stock, depending on how you look at it, with some herbs and some aromatics and some stock. Put that in a big casserole dish sort of thing. Bacon tray with some foil over the top would work. We'll put that in the oven. So I'm going to preheat the oven to not too hot, 160. I reckon will do ya. Before it goes in the oven, we need to put some stuff together. So we are going to sear that in a minute, but I'm going to put that to one side just for now. I'm going to get our aromatics ready. So these are just your basic, standard, stock veg. Nothing crazy. Onion, celery, and carrot. You can't be bothered to peel any of it. To be fair, you won't really need to, because these veg aren't the veg that are going to go in the shepherd's pie that we eat. These are going to go in kind of like a trivet, in the same way that you'd have a trivet, in that we're going to then use these to make a flavoured stock sauce. Just chunk them up however you really feel like. So, bosh. All I've done, we've quartered the onions, hacked the carrot into chunks, hacked the celery into chunks. 3 stalks of celery, 1 big carrot, 2 small onions. Normally you'd have 1 big onion, 2 medium carrots and 3 stalks of celery, but it's a mise en place. Well, it's not a mise en place, it's a mirepoix. I've got some hearty herbs I'm going to put in there. Rosemary, lamb and rosemary go together, best of mates. Thyme is just a lovely savoury herb. Got some bay leaves that are going to go in there as well, because, you know, everything goes with bay leaf. And I've got a bit of sage left over from the pork chop stuff I did the other week. I'm chuck them in there. Bit of sage. I won't put loads of sage in there, but it's just a little bit there, so kind of. Also got a couple of cloves of garlic. Not going to go too heavy on the garlic, because this is like a traditional English job. Wouldn't have had too much garlic in there. Not even going to bother peeling them. Chuck that all in there. So that's our mise en place. Done. Mirepoix. So, back to the lamb. unless you have got some Billy Big Bollock pans, having 2 halves might make it easier for you, but the only problem is you're going to pay more. Really, this recipe is for 1 lamb shoulder or 3 to 4 lamb shanks, depending on the size of them as well. We're going to do it all in the casserole, big casserole, but I'm going to use a big frying pan to sear this off, just so that I can do them both at the same time. So I'm going to get them up to a half decent temperature. We are going to generously salt our lamb, both sides. It's a big old chunk of lamb. It's going to be cooking for ages. You're going to struggle to put too much salt in there. This is also bone in, because we are going to be cooking this for ages. We can just pull a load of flavour out of those bones. So bone in, it's definitely going to be better. You don't have to go bone in, but you won't regret it. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil in that pan, a little bit of oil in that pan. If you have to do one then the other, because you've only got one pan and they don't both fit in there at the same time, nice and flat to fry in, that is completely fine, not a problem. I need some tongs. Right, so we've got a decent bit of heat going on. Where's me? We're going to skin side down first. Get a nice push down into the pan. Just going to get that developing a sear on that lamb. So just let it go, give it some time. You ain't got to worry about overcooking it. Chances are you're going to struggle to burn it. So just I'm going to have a little bit of clean up and then come back when that's shooting along. Right, back. Right, take the lamb out. Got a lovely bit of browning on there. And look at the other side as well. Nice bit of colour on there as well. Right, what we're going to do, put our Mirepoix in the bottom of the pan, spread it out a bit, and then we are going to nestle, kind of like a trivet, but this is a braise, not a roast, so it doesn't have to sit out. Might take a bit of jostling to get them both in there side by side, but we're going to put our lamb shoulders in there. I'm going to pour in any associated lamb drippings as well, just for flavour. Right, now I'm not going to salt that, because I've already put some salt in the lamb. There's going to probably be some salt in our assorted stocks. We're essentially making a super stock that we're going to then use to make a sauce later, so we'll salt it later down the line. But I am going to whack in a bit of pepper. I heard you could tie these all off together in a bouquet garni if you wanted, for easier retrieval later, but we're going to sieve this all off later, so I just distribute them evenly around the pan. We'll get them all out later. Right, and now, stocks. Beef stock, you can use chicken stock if you want, it just won't quite be as rich, but that might be your thing. You can use lamb stock if you can find lamb stock, but lamb stock's obviously a little bit harder to come by. I've got about 500ml, 450 grams of shop bought beef stock. Get all of that out of there as well. And I got, I don't know how much is there, probably about 300ml of leftover homemade stock. And this is off 500ml of Oxo Cube. It wasn't Oxo Cube, it was a North stock pot beef stock. So if you've got proper homemade stock, use it. But because we're kind of essentially making a stock out of other stocks, you can just use Oxo cubes or Knorr or bouillon or whatever. You want it to almost cover it. This is a braise, so you don't want it completely swimming, but you also will need it semi-covered. And put a lid on it, stick it on a high heat until it comes to a boil, and then we're gonna smash it in the 150-degree hot box for. So I'm gonna check it after an hour. It probably won't be done. It'll more likely. I'm gonna check it in 2, possibly done in 2. Probably gonna be looking more like the 3 to 4 hour mark. That's when it's gonna be completely falling apart. We can pull that bone out by hand. That's when you know it's properly rendered. Well, not rendered down, cooked down, and it's properly falling apart, melting your mouth. Goodness. If you're doing this in a baking tray with foil over it, you're going to need to make sure there's enough liquid in there. You might need to put some more liquid back in there. So yeah, we'll be back in a couple of hours time when we'll start making the actual filling for a shepherd's pie out of our 4-hour probably braised lamb shoulder. Okie dokie. Right, 2 hours later-ish, give or take. Out the way of the steam. That's how the butchers be. Smells amazing, looks good, it's nowhere near ready. You can tell if you get a fork, it's soft, and I mean it's edible now, but you don't, it's not like absolutely just falling apart. Give it all a little bit of a twizzle around by all means once you've got it open, just so everything's having a bit of fun, getting to know each other. I'm going to give that about another hour, I reckon. I'm going to check it in another hour definitely, but it may well be done in an hour. Rise that back up again, and I'll see you in another. I said I'll check it in another hour. It was ready in an hour, I'll see you in an hour. And we're back, and it's out of the oven, and it's been out of the oven for quite a while to be fair. But I mean, look at that beauty. I don't know if you can see that actually. The lamb is tongs, literally falling apart. Right, so now what we're going to do is baking tray to put the lamb in for now, and we're also going to get a big mixing bowl. Well, as you want a mixing bowl, just a big bowl, and conical strainer. We're going to move the lamb out of that into there just for now, and then we're going to strain off everything else that's in here so that we can keep the juice. Conical strainer is good because it's nice and stuff and you can like smush it through. If you haven't got a conical strainer, most people haven't, use a colander, but you'll end up with getting bits of veg and stuff through it as well. That doesn't matter too much, we're not making a really fancy clear stock. You can use a sieve as well. The only problem with sieve is it's a little bit more, don't go breaking your sieve. First of all, get the lamb out. Now, if you've done this right, it will just fall apart. So find the biggest bits and pull them out. And then you're going to have to go through and find any other bits. Have a push back, make sure you've got all the lamb, because this veg in here is going to get discarded. Because, a bit of lamb? Yeah, it's a bit of lamb. Because we don't, it's essentially like we've made a stock, it's given us it as all. Any veg that's in here can go back in there. So what I was saying earlier about the bone will just pull out. Go through your lamb, pull out the bone, there's the other one. So those bones, so you know what I said earlier about you can use bone in, you can use bone out, it's completely up to you. The bones add a load of collagen, which gives you that lip smacking unctuousness. But obviously they're not edible, so make sure you, what we are going to do, well, fuck it, might as well do it now. Get yourself a fork and you just want to, if you've got a particularly tough bit of skin, not tough but crispy, like that, you might want to pull that to one side, don't throw it away. We've got more meat here than we're going to need probably, so keep bits like that. So we're just going to shred all of this up, but we're also making sure we've not left behind any bones. If there's some veg left over in here, it's all right, it's not the end of the world. You might find big chunky bits of cartilage like that, gristle that you might want to get rid of as well, because those are not going to be good eats. I'd rather end up with veg in here than meat left in there, because the veg is veg at the end of the day, but the lamb's quite expensive. So that's, get rid of that bit of, there's any really large bits of fat as well that haven't broken down there worth pulling out, just for eating experience. So you just leave that there like that for now. We're gonna turn our attention back to our sauce, stock. Right, where are we? What am I doing? Tongs. The bay leaves, the big chunks of hearty herbage can come out. Now, I should have got that bowl in a second. We're going to put the bones and stuff in there as well. Right, if you're not, this is still quite warm. I've let mine cool down a bit. you can do this all at your own pace, like you could have done the lamb yesterday if you wanted to, because take your time with it. If you're not too comfortable lifting this up, you can always ladle it in, but essentially you just want to pour all this in there. But, oh, it's going to splash. Veg in there as well. Pull that out. You want to go through here, make sure you get everything out. I'm going to use this pot to make our actual shepherd's pie filling. Get all of that out there. You haven't got to scrape it clean, much like a fond in a pan sauce. It's okay to leave all this sort of stuff in it, that is going to have flavour, but we don't want all these really broken down wilted veg. So you strain that off, but give it a see, there's loads of left in here, so give it a good, proper good mashing. Now we've got our super stock. We're going to make our filling with a bit later. Just have a quick clean up and then we're going to go through the actual sauce making. Right, I'm going to put our pot on a heat, medium, just a medium for now. I'm going to go in with a little drizzle of olive oil. If this still comes straight out of the oven, you've done all this while it's really hot. It'll probably be hot enough, but let it just warm up a little bit. And what we've got here is a bowl of Mirepoix, similar to what went in there when it went in the oven. So we've got onion, carrot, and celery, relatively finely diced, not stupidly OCD about it, doesn't really matter too much, but that same sort of ratio. One decent sized onion, one decent sized carrot, a couple of sticks of celery. Once we've got our oil warm again, we're just going to whack that in there, and now we're going to start building the actual filling for our shepherd's pie. Medium high heat, little small pinch or two of salt, help draw out some of that moisture, and pepper. And we're just going to sweat this down, kind of like the beginning of bolognese. What you can also do is scrape down any fond near the top of the page, top of the bowl. As this steams and sweats down, it will help deglaze that as it is anyway. I'm not adding any more garlic to this because I like it kind of, we had some garlic in when we were making the stock, just because I think it helps round it off, and it cooks for so long it adds a nice sweetness. In here, I don't think it's necessary. You want to add some garlic, be my guest. We are just sweating this down, we're not frying it off, so don't proper stick the spurs to it, just let it sweat down. Right, to that, we're going to add it's a decent sprig of rosemary and a couple of decent sprigs of thyme. Taken them all off the sprig, and I've diced them right up, just so that we don't get chunks of rosemary and thyme in our tea. Well, rosemary, not so much thyme. We've also got another 2 bay leaves I'm going to put in there. I'm going to leave them whole because we're going to have to take them out. I'm just going to leave them whole so we can fish them out when we need to. Let them get all amongst each other, amongst it. Like I said, you could have done that yesterday. You can do this all at your own pace. Once that's come out of the oven, you haven't got a rush to start making this and get this all together again. You might be in a rush if you're hungry and you want to get it all done and ready to eat, but you can do that Friday afternoon while you're working from home and then have this ready for Saturday, or you can be doing that Saturday all day, then do this Saturday evening if you want it for Saturday, or do that Saturday and then have this done, do this for Sunday lunch. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, give them a few minutes and then we can move on. Now is also when you might want to start thinking about making your mash. So I've already made my mash, there she blows. But if you didn't want to make your mash ahead of time either, I mean, you can make this the day before if you want, but I just boiled some potatoes. You want about 1 kilo's worth of potatoes, maybe a little bit more. But the secret to mash is you can never make too much, because any leftovers you can have as bubbling sweet tomorrow morning for breakfast, or you can make fish cakes with it, or there's endless uses for mashed potato. So make as much as you think you're going to want, and then a bit more. Can't go wrong. But all I did was boiled up some potatoes. These are what they called, the red roosters, Bartlett's, John Bartlett's. King Edward's, Maris Pipers are all fine. Desiree are apparently, according to the Potato Council, the best ones for mash, but boiled them up till they were, what's the word? Delicate, tender. Tender to a fork or a knife. The fork or a knife will go straight through them. Once they're cooked to that sort of point, get them out, drain them. I let them steam dry for a little bit, not too long because you want them hot. But the next stage, you dump them back in here, chucking off a load of butter, and my secret is an egg or two. Right, so now all of our Mirepoix are sauteed down, sweated down a fair bit. We're going to add good couple of tablespoons of tomato puree and a couple of tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Stir that all in, cook that tomato paste off a little bit. Right, so at this point, I'm going to preheat my oven to 200. Right, now we're going to go back in with our lamb, mix it through as you're doing it, just so you don't end up with one big massive lump of lamb and one big massive chunk of veg. You might need to shred up your lamb a bit more if you find any bigger chunks that you didn't shred properly. A couple of heaped dessert spoonfuls of flour. It's probably about a tablespoon and a half of flour, maybe 2 tablespoons. And then we're gonna go back in with our stock. We're gonna add half of it to begin with. Give everything a stir. Alright, and once that's all incorporated, I'm going to go in with the other half. And turn it up a bit, because what I want now is I want this to not come up to a boil, but I want it to start bubbling away, because I want to use that flour to thicken the sauce up, and also we're going to reduce the stock down just a little bit more. While we're waiting for that to happen, I'm going to have a bit of a clean down because I've got a load of crap out now. But we're just going to let that bubble away just for about 10-15 minutes to let it reduce down a little bit and thicken up. Right, we're back. Should thicken it up, should just have a nice gravy. You've obviously got your carrots. The only thing that, in my opinion, is left to go in here that is a must for a shepherd's pie is peas. We're going to go in there, don't be stingy. We're going to use your tongs, but we're going to reclaim our bay leaves. Doesn't matter too much if you do forget to do this. It isn't going to ruin it. It's not going to explode and kill people. It's all going to happen if someone's going to find a bay leaf in their shepherd's pie. Turn it into a game. Like, say you win a couple of quid if you find a bay leaf or something like that. But say it's like finding the penny in a pudding. It's lucky. Right the way up to this point, you could have done all of this the day before and just do the mash at the last minute if you want. Pro tip as well is if you find it hard to get the mash to sit on top of the shepherd's pie, put the shepherd's pie in your pan and then put the tray, whatever you're making it in the fridge, and it will set up a little bit. So I've got a nice big Pyrex baking tray, casserole dish jobby. You can make this in anything. If you wanted to, you could just put that mash on top of there and whack that in the oven. I wouldn't judge you for that. It's a little bit deep for my liking. But it's like a lasagna, you can have it as thick or as shallow as you want. Get yourself a nice big spoon or a ladle or whatever. And just transfer to your tray of choice. Right, now the way I find this, you can dump that into a piping bag and pipe it if you want. If you find that easiest, you find it easiest. 2 spoons, dollop it on. Get your cup of water, get yourself a fork, wet this fork, and then just back of your fork like that. Just create little, I don't know what you call them, lines, troughs, valleys. What we're doing is we're increasing the surface area to get a bit more crisp and crunch in the oven. Now if you pipe the mash, you can do it with one of those star attachments and it does the same job, but I'm happy to do it like this, and the water just stops the mash from sticking to your spoon, fork. But now this is going to go in our 200-degree oven. I'm going to keep an eye on it. It might be ready in 10 minutes. Chances are it's going to be more like 20, but it could go 30 depending on your oven and depending on how cold everything is. In the oven we go. Check on it in 10, but I reckon we'll be back in about 20 minutes. And the steam and smoke. Need to clean the oven. Right. Have a look at that beauty. Right, I did forget. Hang on, let me get this out because this is precarious. Right, I did forget about saying put the baking dish on a baking sheet or something else to catch any drips in case it boils over. That's pretty much it. That is magma right now. It's like I said in the lasagna video. You can dish into that right now, but you'll never taste anything again for the rest of your bloody life. It's so bloody hot. So give it a moment. Let it cool down a little bit. You'll be able to eat it without ripping all your taste buds to, well, charring all your taste buds to kingdom come. I like to have it with a bit of broccoli, just to have a bit of textural difference on the plate. But when you think about it, you've got potato, meat, carrots, peas. That's a meal in one right there. You don't really need to add anything to it, but you can if you want. Like I said, I'd like to go with some broccoli and maybe even some more carrots. Right, 20 minutes, half hour later. It's cooled down enough now. Pretty much touch it, bare hands. Bit chopped parsley. Like little sprinkle that over the top. Nice little garnish. Bosh, isn't that beautiful? But, there we go, right. This, utterly gorgeous. If you do shepherd's pie once a month, once a year, do this shepherd's pie. If you never do a shepherd's pie, once a year at least, do a shepherd's pie. It does take a lot longer. It's quite hands off, you just chuck it in the oven and leave it for ages. It is a bit ostentatious, and it is a little bit grandiose, and it is very, like, fancy. It's not necessarily fancy, it's still just the same lamb. Instead of it being ground up, it's a whole shoulder. Or you can use shanks, mixture of all different stuff. I wouldn't waste a leg of lamb. I'd save a leg of lamb for a roast. But if you've got an excess of legs of lambs, use a leg of lamb as well. Do whatever, anything that's braised. I mean, you could do a cottage pie the same sort of way, but just do like a beef shin or something else like that, beef short ribs. That's not, I might do that as another video actually. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, Dick and Dom are in the bungalow and all that jazz. This is utter perfection. Take your time with it. None of it's a rush. There's no like, oh, you've got to quickly whisk this into there, otherwise the whole thing will just turn into crap. No. Easy, takes a little bit of time, but it's easy to do. It's just good old-fashioned grub, and you can't go wrong. Right, like, comment, subscribe, and all that sort of jazz. I'll catch you soon. With a bit of luck, you're doing all right. I'm all right, I suppose. I'm eating well. Right then. Oh, peeps, I'll see you when I see you. Bye. Tatty bye.